So you got the guy who's the CEO of the company that swears the Russians hacked the DNC. The FBI never looks at the server. He sits on the Atlantic Council, funded by a guy who's a major donor to the Clinton Foundation, who's having dinner at the house. Don't worry, folks. Nothing to see here. Move along. Let's start painting a picture here of what the Democrats are so eager to make go away in Ukraine with their fake whistleblower complaints. Remember, whatever, as Tucker Carlson says, and I have to hat tip him on this, whatever the Democrats accuse you of doing, they're doing themselves. Why do they do that? Because they know the sycophantic, bootlicking, butt-kissing media will parrot whatever stupid talking point they have, regardless of any evidence exists or not. So what are they hiding in Ukraine? Let's go back to a gentleman named Victor Pinchuk. Oh, here we go. For those of you who listen to the show often, you 0.00001%ers who figured out what I was getting at yesterday with Aspen, thanks for your emails. I read them. For those of you, you'll probably figure out where we're going with this right away. Victor Pinchuk, Ukrainian individual. What does Victor Pinchuk have to do with any of this? Well, let's go to screenshot number one. If you'd like to follow with the visuals at home, youtube.com/Bongino. You can watch these visuals as well. So Victor Pinchuk is a Ukrainian individual. He's very wealthy. And Victor Pinchuk is involved pretty heavily through his foundation with the Atlantic Council. Here is a press release from them, thepinchukfund.org. The Victor Pinchuk Foundation supports the Atlantic Council's Ukraine and Europe initiative, designed to galvanize international support for an independent Ukraine within secure borders. Okay. What does this have to do with the Democrats? Oh, we'll get there. So Victor Pinchuk, very wealthy guy in Ukraine, has this initiative he supports with the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council, some of your antenna, ding, 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 already going up right now.
Oh, yeah.
Who else does Pinchuk know? Remember what we're talking about here? What are the Democrats hiding in Ukraine? I'm telling you what they're hiding is these people all know each other involved in the Trump takedown, and they all need each other to shut up. Who else does Pinchuk know? He's a big donor to this Atlantic Council. That'll come up again in a minute. He's pretty tight with those Clintons. And the Clintons don't seem to want anybody to know that they know Pinchuk. Oh, remember this piece at the Washington Examiner? This is a doozy. Sarah Westwood from August of 2016. It's the best part about this show. We dig up old stuff. That's now new again. I'm really stoked about today's show. I slept super good last night. Right, Paula? Can you tell? Only one person would know that, Paula. Headline, Washington Examiner. Emails show Clinton denied, then met with Ukrainian donor. Who could that be? Who could that be? Well, let's go to the piece and find out who she's trying to hide meeting with. Quote, Sarah Westwood. Emails made public Tuesday show a Ukrainian businessman and major Clinton Foundation donor, wow, I'm sure has nothing to do with this at all, was invited to Hillary Clinton's home during the final year of her diplomatic tenure. What could Pinchuk need from the Clintons, Joe? Donates to the Clinton Foundation, supports the Atlantic, and what could he possibly need? I don't know. Let's go back to the piece and find out what they're trying to hide here. He may have needed. They all need each other, Joe. Despite her spokesman's insistence in 2014 that the donor, Pinchuk, never crossed paths with the Clintons while she served as Secretary of State. Wow, that's odd. They have an email invite to her house, and they're denying it ever happened? Goes on. Victor Pinchuk, who was given up to, $25 million to the Clinton Foundation? Paul, is that a typo? Is that $25? No, Joe. Paula's saying no. Just so we're reading this. Yeah. Victor Pinchuk, Joe, that says $25 million, correct?
Yeah, yes,
okay,
yeah,
thank you. We have a twofer. Yeah. We have two of them backing me up. Pinchuk's given up to $25 million to the Clinton Foundation, appeared on the guest list that was sent between Dennis Chang, an executive at the Clinton Foundation, and Huma Abedin, that's Clinton's right-hand woman, by the way, ahead of the June 2012 dinner. Abedin noted in a subsequent email that the gathering would be hosted in Clinton's home. Gosh, who else is associated with the Atlantic Council that Pinchuk is funding? Wow, this is crazy. Look at this guy. Dmitry Alperovitch, he's on the Atlantic Council too? Dmitry Alperovitch, some of you are like, who the hell's that? No, don't worry, folks. That's just the CEO of the CrowdStrike company that parroted the story that the DNC was hacked by the Russians. Remember that company, CrowdStrike? So the CEO of the company, Alperovitch, sits on this council funded by the guy who's best buddies with the Clintons, who had a real interest in making you believe the Russians hacked the DNC. Don't worry, media people, nothing to see here. It's all a coincidence. Ladies and gentlemen, you're imagining all of this. This is just a big conspiracy theory. By the way, these are actually press releases from the Atlantic Council's own website. But don't worry, we made it up. Paula and I just photoshopped all of this today. So you got the guy who's the CEO of the company that swears the Russians hacked the DNC. The FBI never looks at the server. He sits on the Atlantic Council, funded by a guy who's a major donor to the Clinton Foundation, who's having dinner at the house. Don't worry, folks. Nothing to see here. Move along. Who else is on the Atlantic Council? This is just crazy. All one big coincidence. Well, look, let's see the Atlantic Council's website again. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Evelyn Farkas joins the Atlantic Council as a non-resident senior fellow. Press release by Evelyn Farkas. Wow, crazy time. Who's Evelyn Farkas? Well, Evelyn Farkas came onto our radar screen back in about 2016. As you can see in this Fox News piece, she was a Department of Defense official. That's a senior level in the Obama administration. And she went on NBC and MSNBC and basically blew up the whole spying scandal on the Trump team. Quote, Fox News, March of 2017. Former Obama official discloses rush to get intelligence on the Trump team. Who was that? Obama official? Crazy how this happens. Evelyn Farkas. This is nuts. Here's her quote. Fox News. Quote, I was urging my former colleagues, and frankly speaking, the people on the Hill, it was more actually aimed at telling the Hill people, get as much information as you can. Get as much intelligence as you can before President Obama leaves the administration. Farkas, who is now a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, said, quote, because I had a fear that somehow the information, what information are they talking about, Joe? Are they talking about the Steele stuff? What intelligence did they have? Crazy. Would disappear with the senior Obama people who left. So it would be hidden away in the bureaucracy. That the Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about their dealings with Russians, you mean like the Steele stuff? That they would try to compromise those sources and methods, meaning we no longer have access to that intelligence. You mean your fake sources, like Christopher Steele? Or the source Steele said he had that was interviewed by the FBI in January 2017 that said it was all garbage, all the information. You mean that source? That's the one you're worried about? She goes on MSNBC, gives up the whole scam, and magically she appears at the Atlantic Council again. Crazy. Coincidence. I'm whispering. It's probably driving you crazy. But don't worry. It's all a coincidence. Who else is the Atlantic Council partnered up with? Look at this. Zlochevsky's Burisma and Atlantic Council signed a cooperation agreement. Wow. Published in January of 2017. Isn't this crazy? This is like the Saturday Night Live church lady special. Zlochevsky's Burisma signs with the Atlantic Council, funded by the guy who's a Clinton donor, who the Clintons are denying knowing now. That's really nuts. Who's Zlochevsky and what the hell's Burisma? Oh, Zlochevsky, who runs Burisma, who hired Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's kid, for a fancy, lucrative board seat, despite Hunter Biden having no experience with Burisma's actual product, which is what? Natural gas. So just to go back, the Atlantic Council, funded by a Clinton donor, the Clintons deny knowing, donated $25 million, who may need something from the Clintons, we'll get to that in a second, funds an Atlantic Council, which conveniently seats the CEO of the company alleging the DNC was hacked by the Russians. Gee, that benefited the Clintons, didn't it? The woman who gave up the whole Spygate scandal on MSNBC, and they're in a cooperation agreement with the natural gas company that hires Hunter Biden, the vice president's son, as he's the point man, Joe Biden, on Ukraine and natural gas in Ukraine. Don't worry, folks. Again, nothing to see here.
You just heard The Dan Bongino Show. You can also get Dan's podcasts on iTunes or SoundCloud. And follow Dan on Twitter 24/7 @DBongino.